and welcome to all our friends. We are glad to have you. I'm Chris Leyenbauer, CTO and founder here. This is our third PhaseDoc Live, so we're excited to have you here. If you are new to PhaseDoc, we are a manufacturing startup here in beautiful Raleigh, North Carolina. We focus on single board computers like Raspberry Pi, microcontrollers like Arduino, but we really do more on the mechanical side and not so much on electronics. And because our main product line is a prototyping platform, we've seen lots of fascinating projects from some really smart, interesting people who are our customers. And so we realized that sharing some of those projects would make a great live stream, and that's why we're here. Today, we're planning to take two paths with our conversation, one with technology, specifically Arduino microcontrollers, and also writing, because our guest is an author of several books available on Amazon, highly reviewed, and he also reviews products and writes articles. But the sessions are meant to be highly interactive, so please let us know in the chat if you have questions or comments for him. We will try to get to those because Barbara's monitoring. So without further ado, our guest speaker today is Glen Popiel. Glen is the author of ARRL's Arduino for Ham Radio, More Arduino for Ham Radio, and High-Speed Multimedia for Amateur Radio. He is just about to release his fourth book. He has worked in the computer and electronics field for over 40 years. Since discovering the Arduino several years ago, Glen developed a passion for this really powerful, inexpensive microcontroller and has given a number of seminars and Hamfest forums on the subject of Arduino and open source. Glen is also a former cat show judge and has exhibited Maine Coon cats all over the country. You may see one of them as a guest today. He now lives in South Haven, Mississippi, where he continues to create fun and exciting new Arduino projects for amateur radio and his two lab companions, Angel and Shadow. Welcome, Glen. Hey, tell us a little bit more about yourself and maybe a little bit about your new book.
Hey, Chris, it's good to be here. You pretty much nailed it. I've been doing electronics for darn near 40-something years. Got into the Arduino about 9-10 years ago, and it's just one of those things that is like a duck to water, and I have been into it ever since. And the books have just been fun. I write them as much for me as everything else, and so that's kind of things in a nutshell. I just did finish the fourth book, which is the third in the Arduino series. Finished it like the week before Christmas, and we are actually in the final editing layout stage, and hopefully we'll have it out in time for spring.
Well, so let's talk a little bit about what it takes to create a book like that, because I'm sure a lot of creative people have this fantasy about being an author, right? So how did you get started, and what would you advise to someone who wanted to go down that path?
Well, it's kind of funny. Back in 1979, believe it or not, I was actually first published, and I did it on a dare. I was working with the RCA 1802 microprocessor way back then, and my coworkers saw a call for articles in Kilobaud magazine and dared me to write one. And I did, and it got published. And that was kind of the beginning. I did I wrote a monthly column for a Computer Trader magazine back in the 80s. And that's really where I got my start. And you learn how to write. You learn, how to, what the readers are looking for, and how to put it together in a way that they enjoy reading it. And so my first advice to anybody wanting to get into this is write. Write magazine articles, blog articles, hone your craft. You don't have to be perfect. I am not perfect. In fact, in high school, I would probably have been the one voted most unlikely to ever be published. But it's just one of those, find your style, find what works, and just work with it, and eventually it'll start clicking.
So really, that your time with Computer Trader, all those articles were kind of like an on-ramp to the books, right? They kind of prepped you and also gave you kind of a built-in audience, probably, right?
Yeah, And then when the book thing came along, I was in the right place in the right time, and I had the tools to pull it off. And it was because of that foundation work that I did. And as you'll see through all of this, I am big on foundation.
Right.
I'm a firm believer that if you have that foundation and understand how things work and what you're doing, then, you can do just about anything.
So talk about your methodology, because as we were kind of preparing for today's presentation, you showed us like a lot of the work that you go through to get ready for a book. Tell us a little bit about that methodology.
Okay, well, I can actually show you a little bit here. Let me pop this up.
Perfect.
This is how I start out with a book. I have a list of projects, a description of what the project is, and any notes, who it would interest, what technologies, and things of that nature. And that's what I start with. I hone this list down, and I've determined that when I'm doing a book, I need anywhere from 12 to 15 projects.
Okay.
And that's my target size. That gives me a book in the size range that I want, the publisher wants, and things of that nature. So we start there. And then when I actually get into the book itself, I break out the chapters and the projects and everything. And you notice I've got it all color-coded here. I've got the chapter name, subtopics in the chapter, how many words are in the chapter's complete, it's been submitted, my drawings are done and submitted, photographs, and just every little piece that chapter requires. I've got a checklist, so at the end of the book, I can look back and say, oh my gosh, I forgot that chunk, and get it in, or I know it's all been turned in and I'm finished. So that's my method of organization. And of course, when you start, this is actually the research material for the book. This is acquired, in this case, over a period of about 2 to 3 years, and everything about that project is in each folder, and it's broken out by project or chapter. And of course, we've got one of the projects right there in front.
Wow,
And
so
of course,
you really, it takes a couple, 3 years worth of work to get ready for a book, right?
not really. In this case, yes, because I had a lot of things happen in between, and I was basically out for a year. I had to have some medical issues, and that held me up for about a year. But in this case, I had already done the first 2 books, and I was kind of out of projects, so I needed that extra time to think up some new projects. And it's kind of funny, now that I finished this one, I've already got a half book's worth of projects ready to go. But I kind of joke about when I'm putting a book together, and the biggest thing is organize, organize, organize. Have it in folders, have it in chapters. For example, my editor and I have been going back and forth this week on one of the chapters, and there was a couple of errors, and we went back and forth, and all I had to do is grab the file folder and say, this is what it is. So we've written it wrong, but the facts are correct.
Uh-huh.
And then we had to reconcile all of that together. And that's the other thing. Getting a great publisher and a great editor has been a godsend. Of course, ARRL has been fantastic for me as a publisher. And Mark Wilson is my editor. And, oh gosh, he is absolutely one of the best. We're on the same page. And when he retouches what I do, you can't even tell.
We got a comment here.
Glenn, we got a comment from one of your followers, obviously, and it's a Michael or Michaela Reed. I'm not quite sure of the first name. Maybe you know, Glenn, but that person says that they will never look at your books the same way again. Obviously, learning a lot about how you're doing the process.
I
take that to be a good thing, though.
Well,
Yeah.
that's the thing. People just think these things magically appear.
Right.
And no, there is a ton of work that goes into these. And as you can see, I talk about organized. Believe it or not, every paper and piece on that floor is organized.
Right.
You know, by chapter, by project, in that particular case. And I could literally walk through the floor and grab that. That was before I developed the file folder process, because this has been an evolving thing. And of course, I have my helpers.
Your lab assistants who are apparently also editors.
Yes. This is my second book, which is this one right here. And you can see how big it is. On the left, that's the actual folders and organized material for that book. The ruler behind it shows that it's 19 inches
Wow.
stacked high. The pile on the right is the actual finished chapters that I turned in before we started doing the PDF layouts of them.
Right. So essentially, you've condensed the big stack into the small stack, and
Big
that's
stack
really
condenses down to the small stack.
Mm-hmm.
And that's pretty much the initial book process.
That is, you weren't kidding about thoroughness and preparation, and organization. So really, those are kind of the keys, right? I mean, once you've done the homework and paid your dues about honing the craft, it's about that level of work and attention to detail.
Well, and the big thing, you know, you look at a book, a 300 or 400 page book, and you go, oh my gosh, I will never be able to climb that mountain.
Right.
I had never written more than 2,000 words at a sitting when I wrote my first book.
Wow.
I had no idea really what I was doing, but I had an idea of what I wanted done. What I wanted it to look like. But you break it down into little chunks like you saw on that spreadsheet. And then it doesn't become as big as a mountain. It's the divide and conquer methodology.
Yeah.
And so when I'm working on one particular chapter, I don't care what the rest of the book looks like. I'm focused on that piece, that project. Why is it cool? Excuse me a minute. We have a small problem. Okay.
No, I think you have a large problem.
Yeah. Well, now she'll be happy. She has wanted. It was been in the drawer for an hour, and so now we can continue on here. But the biggest thing, of course, is the organization and just breaking it down. And eventually, you realize if I only do 1,000 words a day, and one schematic a day, one project a week, it breaks that mountain down into small, manageable chunks. And if a project doesn't work, it's built into your deadline. So you realize, probably 10 to 20% of the projects are not going to work.
Right.
Or you just don't have the time to devote to them. Like I've had several in this book that I really wanted to do, but they would have taken too long and I would have missed the deadline. So they went off to the side for further research. And so when we get down to the next book, we don't have that delay. They'll be worked out and all figured out.
Got it. We'll get back. So really, kind of, Glenn, what I was going to say was, aren't you afraid of running out of projects? Apparently the answer would be no.
No, and it all boils down to an initial philosophy that some friends and I kind of just fell into several years ago. And that's when you're trying to think this stuff up, you kind of look around and say, can I automate this? Wouldn't this be kind of neat to do and whatnot? And my catchphrase has really become, wouldn't it be cool if?
Yep.
And for example, one of the very first projects that I started with was a lightning detector. And this will detect lightning out to 40 kilometers, which is about, 24 miles or thereabouts. And that came over a breakfast ham radio club meeting. And the topic came up because, we live in Mississippi and we have a lot of thunderstorms and tornadoes. And the comment was, wouldn't it be cool if you had a lightning detector that could disconnect your antennas and your equipment? And the statement from some of the folks at the table was like, yeah, but those things are expensive. And next thing I know, I found this little sensor for like $25. And boom, you've got an Arduino powered lightning detector for about 40 bucks.
I love that.
And so it's that philosophy. And as you get more involved in the writing process, you find yourself walking around with what's cool? What can I do? Wouldn't it be cool if I did this and that? And the ideas really just suddenly start to flow. And the biggest thing, write them down.
Right.
You know, keep a notepad handy. Don't trust your memory because you'll forget about it. Write it down, and that way you won't forget. And then you'll have at some point in your leisure, put it in that spreadsheet like I did. And then you've got projects to choose from, and you can choose them in the order of which is the best one for this particular book. What's the theme that I'm because every one of my books kind of has a little sub-theme.
Right.
The first one was just introduce the Arduino, new and exciting projects, unique projects. The second one was how far can you really go with an Arduino? And this third one is kind of like, let's fall back a little bit and catch that middle ground of fun things to do with Arduino that are not expensive and not super complex, so that
Right.
everybody can understand it and go from there.
And something you told us about the other day as we were prepping was that I really liked was your philosophy of how you introduce your readers to new concepts and lead them forward. Talk about that a little bit.
Well, that's the one thing is so many people start out with the Arduino of where do I start? I've got this. What do I do? I don't know what I want to do. And so what I do in each chapter, and that's part of my book sub-theme process, is I'm trying to introduce a new technology, an area that hasn't been fully explored, not well documented perhaps. Because a lot of the Arduino books are, basic, here's how you blink a light, here's how you move a servo, here's how you do this. But they're not tailored to more fancy applications. And as you'll see when we get into some of the projects here in a little bit. So what I do is I just find a technology, like I did a USB CW keyboard, with Morse code keyboard, where you can type and it will send Morse code.
Mm-hmm.
But the USB functionality of the Arduino hasn't been really well documented. And so I break that down and I explain it and document it so that the readers can see this and say, oh, I don't need to be a rocket scientist on the technology. I just need to know how to do this, and the Arduino libraries will take care of it for me. And I show you how to get into those functions in that aspect. So basically, I demystify and take some of the fear out of that process.
And that's actually one of the things I read in the reviews on Amazon that I thought was most complimentary is a couple of times, readers would say, these are for ham-oriented projects, but really they're just great introductions to Arduino, regardless of whether you're, interested in ham or not even. And I just thought, boy, that's quite a compliment, and I think that's because of your philosophy. So
I saw that one, and I really like that one.
Yeah.
And it's true.
Yeah.
So we
Because
got
I give you the thought process.
Good. Well, we've got a question
We've
for
got
you.
a question for you, Glenn.
Okay.
I think it's Arnie.
Oh yeah.
He has an unusual first name. Wants to know which Arduino project you are most proud over. The top, most unique one in your opinion.
Wow. This one's gonna kind of leave a lot of the non-ham radio people behind. In my very first Arduino forum that I did at the Huntsville Ham Radio Convention, 8-9 years ago now, we introduced the Arduino, and at the end somebody asked a question and said, can you use it to operate JT65, which is one of the ham radio digital modes? And I didn't even know what JT65 was at the time. And I asked for a brief explanation. I'm like, well, if you could do this, this, and this, and this, and get this to do that, there's no reason I don't see it can't be done. And next thing you know, 3 weeks later, we had pulled together a team and we had actually had a working proof of concept and put it on the air. And basically, we had created an entirely new method of digital modulation that nobody had ever considered.
Wow.
And that one I was most proud of, and it's actually in the second book here. I don't think I've got, I got a picture of its brother. When we get to the projects, I have a picture of one similar to it.
Sure.
But that was fun because it was total groundbreaking on so many different areas, and a team pulling together to make it happen. So yeah, I think that's the one I'm most proud of. Anyway, that's pretty much what we've got in Arduino. I think you wanted to cover the demon children a little bit.
I did. I wanted to just get a little bit of. Those are very large, very smart, but thankfully very happy cats.
Yes, they are really what they call gentle giants. And I've got a little show here for you, because a lot of people have never heard about the Maine Coon. They are North America's only native purebred cat.
I had not until you introduced us to them.
And they are wonderful. This is how they come from the factory. Small.
That is, yeah, pretty
You know,
svelte.
you've heard me say Godzilla, and you'll see her in a minute. This is Godzilla. This is Rodan. This is the one that's been up here all morning. That's Godzilla. She's in the other room sleeping. Just like the movies. You don't want to wake Godzilla. Okay, this is her now. That's a full-size treadmill.
Yeah.
You know, and now you know why she is this big. She doesn't exercise. The treadmill is for sleeping. This is her now, full-size, at a cat show. And you have to realize this cat is not at home. This cat is in a strange place with all these noises and people and smells and other cats, and nothing bothers them. They're just like, whatever, just hold me. The one that you've seen all morning in and out here, this is her fully stretched. She's roughly 40 inches from tip of nose to the tip of the tail.
That's hard to believe.
Yeah, and she's the smaller of the two. And that's of course is her glamour shot, so that you can see what's been running around. This is the two of them. You can see this rug.
Yeah.
That rug is like 4 feet across.
Yeah.
And people come over to the house and they see them and they're like, "Do you need to put the bobcats up?" And
Seriously, that's what they look like. And you are
Yeah.
lucky that they're such good-natured cats, because they look like they could hurt you if they felt like it.
yeah, and this is of course was the poster that inspired their nicknames,
Of
because
course.
they are sisters and they fight like sisters.
Wow.
And here we go. We talked about this. I've been showing Maine Coons and been involved with them for about 35 years. And this one here was the one I showed in 1989. She took a Best in Show at the Madison Square Garden Cat Show, which is at that time was the Cat World equivalent of the Westminster Dog Show.
Mm-hmm.
And this one here is actually the great whatever aunt to these two. Her litter sister is that side of the line for the two that I have now. And that was her glamour shot. And she was actually the best female Maine Coon in the world back in 1989.
Yeah. That's a
But
very
we're talking
pretty
about
cat.
the need for the phase dock and the cover. Okay, they are into everything.
Yep.
I can't take pictures without them having to be involved. This is one of those component testers that's also a tool that I would highly recommend. It will give you the pinout and the orientation and value of various components, but I have to borrow it from her when it's time to do it. I was taking this photograph for the book, and you can see it extremely, but that's what's showing a transistor being tested, but you can see that I was not being granted much leeway. And of course they also edit They evaluate my projects, and the funny thing is, this was a project that failed horribly.
Apparently.
And we get the evaluation from the inspectors.
That, from the look on her face, yes.
Oh yeah, it's just total disgust. It's like, you
Oh.
really knew this wasn't going to work, didn't you?
That's hilarious.
And then finally, there's her sister. So they're both in on the action.
Well, we joke,
And-
Glenn, but seriously, a lot of folks have that issue in their shops.
Exactly, and that's why the phase dock works so well for me. Is I can now build something, put the cover on, and know that it will be there. It may be on the floor, but it will be there the next morning intact.
And that honestly is what originally inspired it. I went over to my friend Andre's house, and he had a project on his desk, and I said, Andre, I was here a few weeks ago, and it was right there. He said, yeah, I can't move it because it will not survive the move, you know. And so that's kind of how it evolved, but it also helps to be able to protect it. And so it's been fun. It's been a fun ride, and it's great to hear feedback. And
plus, you know, transporting and everything,
Yeah.
taking it to like a club event or a forum. I can build something like you saw in that photograph, and know that when I get there, it's going to work.
yeah,
It's not going to fall apart.
because this is such a community-based activity, right? That's one of the beautiful things about our world is everyone is willing to share, loves to teach, loves to get together and show what they've done, and we kind of want to help that along. And then, you know, this is a good point at which to mention again, your community, the ham world with ARRL, and all those communities there. Again, Dr. Duino, Guido Bonelli has just been a really wonderful support to us. And that's been kind of the best part of this company, has been getting to know some really smart but good people who are so willing to support and share what they know. And
Exactly.
it's just so much fun.
And that's the way I feel. That's probably one reason, again, why I'm enjoying the Arduino so much, is the open source world.
Yeah.
You know, everybody is willing to help and share. And that's the way I write my books, is they are not gee, look what I did, now you can build one. My approach is, let's build this, here's how it works. Now, I've given you a working one, now you add the bells and whistles and make it look
Right.
really cool.
Right.
So I leave you a challenge to learn. So at the end of the day, you can say, look what I did.
Yeah.
I used his stuff, but look what I did to it.
Yeah.
And that's really where I get my thrill and enjoyment out of sharing and teaching the Arduino. It's just been such a fun ride.
I think that's why your books have done so well, because literally when I read the reviews, I was like, wow. And I think it's because of that attitude and that approach.
Well, you know, what was so funny, how I fell over into the books, it was literally, I saw one out there and I said, I can do better than that. Somebody heard me and asked me to put my money where the mouth was. And I did it. But, you know, the highlight of all of that is like, oh, man, you know, I'm going to do this because I'm not going to fail. But at the end of the day, what really got me, because I hadn't thought about this, because when you're caught up in the moment of producing this, you're focused strictly on your work. But when I finished and sat back, it was like, oh, my God, I'm going to be on Amazon. People are going to read and review me. Oh, God, what have I done?
Yeah.
And fortunately, it has been an amazing ride. It's been very well received. I've enjoyed it, and it's fun. One of the things I've got here real quick, back when we were able to go out and do things,
I
at
remember
the
that.
Dayton Hamfest in Ohio,
Uh-huh.
I get to do book signings and meet my readers and folks.
I get that, because when we've gone to maker fairs, don't you love meeting
Oh.
folks? It's
I enjoy it. It is just so fun. And of course, there's the other book, and that's on microwave networking technology. But the Arduino is really where I am happy and at home with. But meeting the people that buy the books and read them and hearing their personal experience with the book and with the Arduino, that's what I really enjoy, is that interaction. And sometimes I'll get a recommendation or a piece of advice or even criticism. And it's like, you know what? I can be better. I am not perfect. Like I said, I was never a writer. I was never supposed to be. And you're always learning, both with the technology and with the writing itself.
Well, we are glad that you took that path, because it's clearly worked out well for you, and I think you've really helped a lot of folks move forward and learn. And I just props to you for that. We can't thank you enough for joining us today. It was just so much fun, and you were so well prepared. Made my job completely easy. Just sit back and get out of the way. Thank you for that. That
Well,
was awesome.
I enjoy doing it. So thank you, Chris. This has been fun, and I hope everybody watching has had fun watching all of
I
this.
tell you, from the number of comments that have come through, it's just been really, this has been one of our best sessions. So just, it's
excellent.
awesome.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Next month, we're going to have our next Phase Doc Live session. A friend of ours that we met at Maker Faire in Detroit, I think. And that'll be Walker Archer, who has built Terra, a robot based on an electric wheelchair base. A fascinating story. He's just done some amazing things with that. So if you're into robotics or fabrication along those lines, please do join us for that. Again, Glenn, thank you so much for joining us today.
Real quick, that's book 4.
Oh, hang on.
That's
Let
Arduino
me
4. It's
let me pop
already
over
started.
to you. Show it again. Show it again.
Right there.
That's awesome.
It's already started.
Have you-
And the editor is already all set to go too. So, thank you so much, Chris.
Thank you, Glenn. That was awesome. Everybody, have a wonderful day. Keep making. Thank you for joining us. And we will see you next time.